Hello, everybody. Hello there. Thank you for joining us Wednesday noon for a regular. If you've been before, or welcome for the first time. If this is your first time, this is episode 6 of New Poetry Society. It's brought to you. Oh, I should say I'm Henry Normal, just in case you don't know. I'm Henry Normal, and this is brought to you by Inspire, which is the people who sort out the Nottingham libraries for the Nottingham County Libraries. It's also brought to you by Metronome and lots of other people like the Notts County Council, the NTU, that's the Nottingham Trent University, Confetti, which is part of the Metronome Group, and the Nottingham Poetry Festival, of course. So there you go. So thank you to all those, and thank you to you for joining me, and thank you to my special guest today. So today I've got one of the best poets in Nottingham, and one of the most widely got a wide talent of things that she gets up to, and I would say one of the most experienced poets that we have in Nottingham. So please welcome Cathy Grindrod.
Thank you very much, Henry.
Now I said Grindrod, and it should be Grinrod, shouldn't it?
It should, yeah.
Oh, I do apologise.
Yeah, get my name right.
Do you get that? Do you get that a lot?
Yes.
Yeah.
Especially from people who do it deliberately.
Do they?
So
yeah, you were telling me before that you've been very prolific during the lockdown. What do you put that down to?
Well, maybe not the first bit of lockdown, which sort of stultified me and a lot of other people maybe a bit.
Yeah.
But just lately, when I've discovered things you can do online,
yeah.
Particularly when I found Kendal Poetry Festival, we're doing an 8:30 a.m. hour where they just literally put poems up on the screen and let you respond to them. And it absolutely unleashed me. I found it a really, really useful thing. And I wrote lots and lots of things which I could then go back to. So in the latter part, maybe the second lockdown.
So how do people look at those? What do they type in?
Well, that was a festival that's finished now. But there are lots of things happening. You should Google different literature festivals who often have workshops, often free, that you can book into online. So just being aware of what poetry festivals and literature festivals are doing, because a lot of them, they're doing everything free online. There's lots of things you can access like that.
Yes, yeah. Do you know, it's quite nice having all the free stuff online, isn't it? Saves you a bit of money and it saves you a bit of bus fare.
Definitely.
I always like. So now, of course, this is for Nottingham, the Nottingham sort of county libraries, but you're Derby, aren't you?
As in, I live in Derbyshire. Yeah, I live in here, in Derbyshire.
Yeah, and you were the Poet Laureate for Derbyshire.
I was Derbyshire Poet Laureate, yeah. So, but I lived first of all for probably as many years in Nottingham, in Sherwood in Nottingham, before I moved to Derbyshire. So sort of half my adult life there and the other half here, conveniently situated between the two. So I tend to do a lot of my work with other people writing in Nottingham, and my own stuff tends to happen in Derbyshire, which works for me very well.
Yeah, well, I think you're very much a Nottingham player, Nottingham face, and I know that you've, as you say, you've done lots and lots of work in Nottingham. Now, I want to hear some of your poems today, and make sure that all our viewers hear them. So, have you got one we can start with?
Yeah, because I'm responding to your wonderful art gallery behind you, which you told me is all of Johnny's paintings. It puts mine into a bit of a cocked hat, doesn't it? Mine's a bit sad compared to yours. But for that reason, I'm going to start with a poem about Tate Modern, just for you. Baggage. You were 12 when we went to Tate Modern. Not many years since you'd cried in the carpet shop, knowing that blood red sample square would never fit your bedroom floor. Not many years since your dad and I had held our breath, eyes to ceiling, to wait for the thump of you falling from that new bed, unused to its dangerous edges, onto the mattress we'd placed below, the one from the cot, which not long since you'd learned to climb out of. Not many months since those first cold weeks of the coldest winter in years, you in your caricot, hat and mittens, me sleepless with checking. So much then to carry that day, as we made for her bed in the middle of white floor space on its wide stretch of carpet. Tracy Emin, you read. You stared, loving it. I stared, not loving it, which may be why you continued to stare, still loving it. We stood a while to take it in, you old enough to understand each piece of catalogued detritus. Finally, you turned to walk away across that corner as attendants swooped like guarding magpies, shooing you away from edges you had failed to recognize. Years later, we still love the story of you walking on that carpet, part of you forever locked inside that artwork, later sold for millions. And by all we've heard of Tracy since, we like to think she would have laughed, like us, while looking back on art and carpets, on treasures found in baggage, boundaries and beds.
Beautiful. Oh, I love that. Now, I didn't know that you were an artist yourself.
No, not a visual artist, I'm not.
Yeah. Well, did you do that one behind you?
No, actually, a very good friend of mine did it.
All right.
Not
as much colour as John. He likes to use colour. All the walls of our house are.
I love that. I love colour.
It's quite funny because we were looking at some houses online to buy recently, and usually when people put stuff up to buy, they paint all the walls white, don't they? And they take all the pictures of themselves down.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so it looks very bland. And then you see our place and you just think, oh my God.
Explosion in a paint factory. That's what my ex-mother-in-law called my daughter's bedroom when I decorated it.
Oh, I like that. That's a lovely poetic term. Now, I should say that we've got a chat facility down the side. And halfway through the event, we'll be taking questions from yourselves out there. So do save them up, and I'll give you a signal about halfway through. And then if you put them onto the feed for the chat or the Q&A feed, then we'll read them out and try and answer them. Now, I noticed on the chat facility at the moment, people are giving information about different events that are happening, which is brilliant. So thanks for that, and continue to do that. That would be great. So this is from your instigation here, Cathy. Everybody's swapping information about events. So that's great. Yeah. So now your latest book, which you told me is sold out. That's pretty good.
That's pretty good. Yes.
It's called the Sky Head-On.
Yeah, it's a while back now.
Yeah, and I love titles. And the Sky Head-On, it intrigues me. Can you tell me anything about that title?
I can tell you that when I'd finished got all the poems together for this collection, I hadn't a clue what to call it. Yeah. And I generally tend to go through every title, every poem, every line to find anything that would work as the title. And the collection, I suppose, is about meeting things head on. It's about daring, really, a lot of it. And I couldn't think of anything. And so I gave it to John Lucas, who published the collection, told him I couldn't find it. And he literally opened the book to one of the poems, and it's the first line of one of the poems. And he said, what about the sky head on? And I thought, my God, I've just spent a week trying to work that out. And it was the perfect title. And that's how the title came about. And I suppose it's called that because it is about just going for it, really.
Yeah. No, sometimes you need that perspective, don't you?
Yes.
Poetry is about perspective, really. And what a great poet John is, John Lucas.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've not got him on this run, but if we have another run, we shall get him on, because he's brilliant. So it's great to hear you reading your poems, because you do so much work for other people, don't you? You do workshops and mentoring, and you know, I met you recently. Well, I say before lockdown, up in Bilborough, where you were doing some work with people in Bilborough. Yeah, and it's nice that you do all that sort of stuff. But there must be something really for you to, you know, as a terms of expression, for concentrating on your own work as well.
Yeah, and one can detract from the other sometimes, I think. So it's very much about remembering you're a writer too, and that's where all this working with other people's writing came from, your own love of writing in the first place. So yeah, it's important to nurture that side of you as an example to everyone else who you're continually trying to nurture to concentrate on their work. Yeah.
So can you remember where that original passion came from? You know, can you? I was trying to think back myself. Can you? Was it at school or you know, outside school?
Passion for poetry. I was sent to elocution lessons when I was 7, not because my parents were posh or rich or anything, but because they didn't want me to speak with a Lancashire accent, and it was going that way. They thought that's what would stamp it out of me, I think, which was very much the thinking then. It did to an extent, but the teacher loved poetry, and she had shelves and shelves of books of poetry, and she discovered I loved poetry like she did. I already had a taste for the rhythms of it. I'd always been interested in it when it was read to me, and she made me learn a poem every week. And that's, you can't not have a passion, I think, if you've been immersed in that, because I went to those lessons until I was 17, unbelievably. And in the latter years, I was going because I wanted to, because she was helping with my O and A levels to get the good grades. And yeah, so I learned a lot, a big immersion in poetry. That's what kicked it off, I think. But I don't think, but then if I hadn't been into it in the first place, because my brothers and sisters also had to go and did not end up poets. So it was just, I think it was a lucky thing.
What did they end up as?
My brother ended up as a painter and decorator with a very broad Lancashire accent. Yeah. My other brother did all kinds of different jobs. My sister ended up as a nursery head teacher. She's very creative as well, though, in different ways. Yeah.
Well, that shows you then, doesn't it? There must be something deep within you that it connected with. I say no history of people writing in my family. You know, my dad worked at Raleigh for 40 years, and my brother worked at Raleigh, and you know, my sisters have not done anything in smooth writing. But I from about the age of 11, I was into it. So I'll read you one of my poems. Now I know you like nature poems and stuff, so this is one I wrote. Just a little bit further down the road. So I'm living in Brighton now, and just a bit further down the road is Cuckmere Haven, which you might have.
I know that, yeah.
Yeah. So this is Cuckmere Haven. Sun stripes the Seven Sisters like a barcode. The sea and the sky are sketched with the same pen. Dandelions and buttercups lie scattered like coins loose on your dresser. A lighthouse serves little purpose during the day, other than to wait, though I know somewhere on this misnamed earth there's always ships out at sea, still in the dark. Oh. It's I've found it great comfort to me over the years to escape into poetry. Do you find it a bit of an escape? Is that part of the attraction?
Sometimes. Other times, because you very much want to say something that's got you goat or made you sad, sometimes it made you happy. So sometimes an escape, sometimes to record what happens so you don't let it go. Sometimes just as a reaction to life.
Yeah, it's interesting because photographs do this thing of bringing back the moment, but there's a lot of time between photographs, aren't there? And you sort of want to find ways to remember all these times between the photographs. And poetry is a good way, because I think it not only reminds you of the particular moment, but it can remind you within a poem. You can be in several places and several moments, can't you? So whereas a photograph is just one place and one time.
When you read that, do you remember the writing of it, where you were when you wrote it, and the place that you're writing about? Quite clearly.
Yes. I was on my brother's bench. My brother died a few years back, and I was on his bench, sat on his bench, looking out over the Seven Sisters, and you can see the. I suppose you're supposed to be six sisters now, aren't you, with the social distancing, and the lighthouse beyond, and
So the poem actually has a whole world around it that you, the poet, are aware of, and other people aren't. For me, I think I'm trying to get some of that world into the poem and capture it there, so that other people can feel it. Maybe that's what, but also for myself, I'm capturing the memory.
It's interesting, isn't it? And like with song lyrics, there's a sort of if somebody's singing about Diana or something, you think, well, I don't love a girl called Diana, or my name's not Diana, so it's not particularly about me. But somehow it is about all relationships, and there's interesting, I think, in poems where you write the particular, but we can use that as an example of something more general.
Well, my favourite quote about poetry is that you only write half the poem, the reader fills in the rest. Yeah, it's about leaving it open, isn't it? So they can walk into it and relate it to their own experience. So some people will find something in your poem that you didn't even know, you didn't mean to be there. Or sometimes they point out things that you realise you did mean to be there, but you've never actually clocked it. So to me, it's a communication between the writer and the reader, and I love that everyone will have a different take on what you're writing.
No, I agree with you, and it's great that you can write something and sort of it's actually bigger than you.
Yeah.
Which is a brilliant thing, isn't it?
You have to let it go, don't you? They're like babies to me. You have to. When somebody says, "What's your favourite poem?" I think, well, I can't possibly choose between them. I'm just sending them out in the world to do their thing.
Yeah, they'll all be looking at me scornfully.
Yeah.
So, how did the laureate of Derbyshire come about?
Oh, brilliant! I applied for it. It was like a job. Like it was advertised in the paper. We're looking for a laureate. You have to have written some poems, obviously. You have to be interested mainly in bringing poetry to other people. So be a real advocate for poetry. Know why you think it's good for people, as it were. But you also needed to be sort of prepared to talk to people and communicate a bit, and maybe have a book out if you have to, etc. There was a whole list of things you were going to have to do. And I applied thinking, well, I'm in Derbyshire and I'd been there for some time then, and it felt like home, and I got the job, amazingly.
Oh, good. Well, it's brilliant that you've managed to, over the years, earn a living from writing in lots of different ways, because I know you write plays and you've written a libretto as well, I understand.
Yeah, libretto, yeah.
I've never even attempted. So you're musical as well?
You don't have to be, because the libretto is the words, but I am musical, and it did, as in I play the piano, and I used to play the cello, haven't done for years, but I do still play the piano and sing. And yes, so it did help. It did help when I was writing, because all the words I wrote had to be sung. They were sung by a solo opera singer and choirs, huge choirs of school children. So, and I had to work with the composer, but he wanted all the words first. It was about the life of Bess of Hardwick. Yeah. He wanted all the words first, which I provided him with sort of in different songs. And he worked with me on the music. So sometimes I had a tune in my head because I'd got in my brain, and other times he composed the music to it, but it was a collaboration and it was fascinating. It was lovely, lovely project.
Oh, brilliant, brilliant. Now, is it anywhere that we can, is it recorded anywhere that we can see?
I'm not sure if you'll see it on the web anywhere. A CD was made of the music and a book which the CD is slotted into. I'm not sure whether you can buy it or whether Derbyshire County Council might still have some of those books. There were loads of different project partners. I'm not sure in the end who made that. I have copies of it. I'm not sure where you would actually buy it, but it's...
All right. Now, you did say earlier that you do a newsletter and that people can correspond with you through that. And how would somebody get hold of the newsletter?
Well, I think... Oh, look, to subscribe to Cathy's news. Yes, I've just put on the chat.
Oh, there you go. Have a look on the chat.
Fortuitously enough, my email address there. So if anyone is... Sorry, go on.
I'll say, in case people haven't got the chat.
Okay. So it's giving my email address, cathy.grindrod@btinternet.com, so that if you want to hear more about what I do and what events are coming up, and also about the Writer Highway, which I run, and I do lots of courses and coaching, then do email me and just express an interest and I'll add you to the list.
That's brilliant. You know, I love that you're open in that way, that people can email you. I was showing people last week the first book of poems I had when I was, in my youth, and I'd put me address on the back.
Do that.
Not many people nowadays put the name and address on the back of their books. But that's I think we both come from a community arts sort of background, haven't we?
Yes, well, yes, very much so. Yeah.
It's about treating people as individuals and as a community, rather than the performer being separate and the...
Yes, I'm not a corporation. I'm just me. Yeah.
Have you got another poem for us?
I have. You were talking about escaping.
Yep.
This is one I wrote in lockdown when I was fed up with the four walls and went out with a friend in a car in the rain. It's called 30th of September 2020. And rain is falling on metal, running down these car windows already covered in raindrops, and the windscreen so misted that only the fuzz of headlights in rain come through. But to the right, the window wound down, shows through its 2-inch gap fields, trees, and a distant farmhouse, a steep winding path to its yard. Farms aren't usually on the top of hills, I say, and you take your moment. Have you never heard of hill farmers? You are nothing if not predictable. You are painting, dipping your blue paintbrush in an old mustard jar, its yellow lid resting on the dashboard, a box of oil pastels open on your lap, its red edge resting on the steering wheel. And were I to choose which colour, it would of course be magenta. I am writing, thinking about our poetry class today, the thin column of the poem we read, 30th of June, 1974. When maybe I was lying on a summer school playing field or in a classroom of dust motes in sunlight, waiting for the bell to signal home. Home which is now 4 walls I have fled from just for this afternoon, to make a new home in this car, listening to rain on metal, the shush of car tyres passing our little lay-by, the wind turbines in the distance turning. Outside my window, a gate to a field tied with a frayed rope, the orange of your oil pastel, and on the ground a wing mirror and a woman's umbrella side by side. And what a story that might tell of past lay-by inhabitants. I offer to steal the umbrella for you, and you say, it'll be wet. And taking my moment, I say, yes, umbrellas often are. And we smile, the flask almost empty, you sketching the home on the hill, me writing about you sketching the home on the hill, and the rain still raining.
Oh, that's great. That's great. You know what? I love talking to you, over the years and hearing your poetry. You've got a very lovely sense of humour it's not banging down the doors, but it's beautifully woven into the humanity of what you're doing. I love that.
Thank you. That's nice. No one's ever said that before. I like that.
Yeah, but it's great, and you see, I find that sweetening the pill, as it were, a little bit of humour is makes it bearable, but also it gives you that contrast, doesn't it, between sort of the more serious and grave stuff and
well, life is that, isn't it? It's the devastating followed by the humorous all the time, isn't it? Everything I write, I think, is maybe trying to show that those negative and positive emotions are so close, actually.
Yeah, well, I find they are, but there are people, Cathy, I don't know whether you've met any of them, that don't see it that way. They're all one way. Infuriating either way. If they're all happy, that's infuriating, and if they're all miserable, that's infuriating. You need a little bit of
both, don't you? Yeah.
A little bit of both, yeah. Now I'm going to open up the chat facility for questions. So if you've got any questions, try and keep them short because my eyes aren't what they used to be, and we'll see if we can answer some. I'm going to have a look on the Q&A. See how technical I am. I can't see any on the Q&A at the moment. We have a Q&A facility as well, which you can use. So either the chat or the Q&A. A lot of people saying how beautiful the poems are, Cathy. I don't know whether have you got the chat facility?
Yeah, I'm watching them come up. That's really nice. Thank you, everybody.
It is nice, isn't it?
That's Alison, lovely Alison. Thank you, Alison.
Yeah, it's a bit strange when you do Zooms. Now, obviously, because we can talk, that makes it a little bit more human and sociable. But often you've just got yourself and no sound coming from the other side. Have you done some of those Zooms?
Yeah, it's really disconcerting reading to, especially if you're reading to black boxes with words in them, yeah. And a few smattered faces and you can't tell the reactions, and it's really difficult when you write to communicate, and because you feed off an audience, don't you? You must feel that, Henry, and every audience is different, and it's all the same when it's on Zoom usually.
I find it interrupts my the rhythm, because I think when you're in an audience, you gauge a certain rhythm of the audience, and the pacing of what you're doing. So you're guessing really, or doing it from memory. I find I'm probably, if I tell a joke, if I'm on, then I'm doing the joke from memory as when I've done it before, and I remember what it's supposed to sound like. Let's obviously, if we don't have any questions yet, but that's okay. Don't you worry. We can do that. Now, I'm going to read you a couple of one of my poems because I've sought out some ones that explore different bits of nature, which I've been loving doing. And I do sit around a lot these days. Just trying to work out what my inner landscape is as well as my outer landscape. I don't know whether you think about it in that sort of way. But I often think that as I'm looking out at things, very often what I choose to pick out is something to do with my mood and how I'm thinking. This is one of me sat on a beach in Portugal, which I like to do. It's called Who Wasn't Out to Sea Didn't Pray to God. There is enough water here to drown every soul on earth. We sit and watch white lines break upon black slate. Trees and shrubs I can't name, claw at slopes whose classifications I can't pronounce. The old fascia falls bent and crumpled like a broken roller coaster rail. These veterans, a wall planner of existence. Humanity huddles at the inlets. Though we don't say as much, we share a cathedral sky with the distant clouds, the abandoned buildings, the quiet fishermen, the Easter sun, and the loneliness at the end of the ocean.
Wow, the loneliness at the edge of the ocean, that's lovely.
Yes, it's funny, isn't it, when you look out at the sea, there's always that sort of question of what's beyond what you can see.
Yeah.
And I find it very soothing. I don't know about you. If an actual horizon, there's something about it being straight
Yeah.
And uncluttered. There's something, I love the fact that you get like a dark blue, don't you, of the sea, and then you get a light blue. I always call them Chelsea and Man City in football. And the fact that there's you know, it's untarnished, if you like, by humans, that it's natural and there. I just find it very, very soothing. I could watch the horizon for hours.
I like your references to lighthouses as well. In the last poem you had, I've got a real thing about lighthouses. Just written a poem about a lighthouse. Oh
right, yeah. There's something symbolic, isn't there, about that sort of light in the darkness, and I think as poets we look for these connotations in images, don't we? We look for, and sometimes you can see a juxtaposition that you've not seen before. You know, like I'm here in my son's room, and I'm seeing a different view of the world outside my window.
Yeah,
I was in my room, and just by the nature of being in a different place, I can see, you know, different rooftops and stuff. And I often think that very often if I have writer's block, if there's such a thing, all I have to do is go and, you know, find somewhere else to sit, basically.
Yeah. I think on that, it's also good to have a child, to be able to remember how you felt as a child and to see things with a child's eye. Yeah, I think the more you can find the child in you when you're writing, even if whatever it is.
And look at it afresh. Now, I've got a question here. Cathy, when everything is back to normal, are there any ways in which you may have some kind of nostalgia for these restricted times? That's a good question.
It is a good question because, of course, you'll have a lot of bad memories and of the difficulties and the scariness and the shielding and whatnot. But yeah, I think there are things about lockdown that I've really appreciated and that I will look back on and think, not least the unleashing of my writing, actually, all the poems it's led me to read, which I wasn't expecting at all. Knowing every single path in Shipley Park, which is near where I live, whereas before I don't think I'd ever have explored all those paths without just having to have somewhere to go. But the obvious things, really.
It's funny, isn't it? When you can't explore at a great distance, you can explore deeper the things
what's around you. Yeah.
Around you, yeah. I will have a nostalgia for, although I'm hoping to keep it up, but you know, while things pull you this way and that way, I do have a tour later in the year. But I've instigated a thing with my son every day, where at around 2 o'clock we do a quiz. And it's a great way of sitting in a room and talking about anything.
Yeah.
Because the great thing about a quiz is you can say, you know, what's the biggest country in South America? And you're talking about the big South America, you talk about, you know, Brazil or Argentina or, you know, and so it's a great way of talking about things that you wouldn't normally talk about. And so I've loved that. We do that for about an hour, and we've done that every day of the lockdown.
Yeah. Reminds me of my daughter moved house during lockdown, and I could spend she was shielding, and I could spend loads of time with her, helping her settle into the new house. And I ended up writing a journal of our experiences of tradesmen and all the kinds of funny things that happened.
No, that's good. Let's see if there's any more, no more questions in. I'm going to look on the old Q&A. Getting quite adept at this. Although I sometimes lose my mouse. Do you do that where you can't actually see where your mouse is?
I don't do the mouse. I do the.
Oh, we don't do the mouse. Let's have a look. Here we go. When did you first feel confident enough to submit your work to a publisher?
Me?
Yes.
When did I first feel confident enough to submit my work to a publisher? Well, I joined Nottingham Poetry Society. One of the first things I did when I started to write poetry all those centuries ago, and people were flattering about my poems and encouraged me to try out for things. And I sent my very first poems to Poetry in Nottingham, which was edited at the time by, gosh, I can't remember, Martin Holroyd, I think. And he made me feature poet for that issue. So it was a very local kind of support and understanding from people and suggestions that I might try that made me do that. And I think once you've done it once, you kind of think you get a bit of an ambition for it. And you think, oh, well, I might try this one next. And I did sort of immerse myself in finding out where else you could send things to. So the confidence really came from other people saying to me, you could do this, I think.
What about performing? Because I've seen you perform and you're a brilliant performer. When was your first performance?
The first time I ever read my poems, I typed them out in 16-point font along with everything I was going to say and read it with my head in the books. I was so
green bits as well. You typed over.
So terrified. And it took me a long time to be able to even think about doing something like this, even think about it. I was a child who, despite the elocution, as a young child, I had elective mutism, where there were days when I wouldn't speak for various reasons. So to become a person who could just speak ad lib and who could read the things they'd done confidently took years, and it was just purely by doing it and doing it and doing it.
Now, I can understand that because most people are in this, but I'm actually quite a shy person. And when my mum died when I was 11, I was even shyer. And so it took me quite a while to build up confidence. I've got a dreadful memory. So I have to worry about, I can be looking at a spoon and forget that it's called a spoon. And it must be early Alzheimer's, but quite mild. So I have that to contend with. But the thing is, there must be something in you that drives you to overcome it. You know what I mean? You're sort of having to.
I think there's a golden nugget in there that is there in me. Yes. Something, despite whenever you're feeling really unconfident, something keeps you striving. You don't ever give up.
That's good.
And I think that creativity is really important to you.
Yeah, whether it be tenacity or stamina, I think is one of the key things I've found with any of the creatives that I've met over the years. That it's great to be to have inspiration. It's great to have talent, but without stamina and tenacity, it comes and goes. So somebody's written, Alison Mott says, did you send the first poem to Tracy Emin?
No, but I did think about it.
Yeah.
I thought about that only this morning, and I thought, how would I be able to send that to her? Because I'm a great advocate of that. I think if you write something about someone or some place, it's about communicating it and getting poetry out to places that you don't have to just have it in erudite books. To send it to the place where it's meaningful. So it's something that if I had a contact, I might well do, Alison.
Do you do Twitter and Facebook and things?
I don't.
No, I tried to find you on Twitter. I couldn't find you on Twitter, but you are on Facebook though.
I am on Facebook. I don't do a lot with it.
Yeah, because you can always post stuff up there, and you never know, it can get on Tracy by sort of because in Tracy's feed it'll say this person has mentioned you.
Yes. Okay.
So you never know. You could do it that way. Because I get people mentioning Henry Normal sometimes in a good way, and it comes up on my feed. I'm still, little enough for a sort of a persona to actually read them. But there you go. Maybe Tracy still does. You never know. Do you have a particular approach or technique to creating a poem once you get an idea?
Well, pen and notebook. Never go anywhere near the computer for ages. Yeah. I have a notebook where I put everything that's a draft of everything. I believe in the writing with the pen and the hand. And I suppose I write an initial draft quite fast. And then I spend a long time faffing. And I have two processes. So I'm either writing or faffing. I like the faffing more than the writing. The blank page is scary. I have another notebook where I rewrite the draft into that notebook. So that's like almost there. And at that point, I'll put it on the computer because it will look different when you type it out. And from that point, I'll print it off and I'll edit it from what it looks like on the page.
Oh, that's interesting. Now, you see, I wouldn't have guessed that you'd have had a second draft, if you like, on paper. Because I certainly write in a notebook, especially when you're out and about.
Yeah.
And then I transfer it onto computer. But I do my second drafts on computer.
Yeah. Because of course, no, it takes a while for me because I do a lot of faffing. Thank you, a lot of faffing.
I tell you what, the funnily enough, the comedy ones that I do, I can do straight onto computer because a lot of that is about mixing around the words and making it the most efficient you can do. So that's easier to do on a computer, and sometimes they get to 14 drafts. So I don't want 14 notebooks full of one poem.
Are you keeping all your drafts, Henry, so that one day you'll be like, people will be looking at them under glass cases in a museum?
No, I'm not. I'm glad to say. No, I like people to think they're as good as they are, and they've never been worse.
I think they just fell out of you.
Yeah. Well, yes, I'm a genius in some way. What's he say? Do poems often start off on one subject and then take a quite different turn? That's a good question.
Sometimes. I think you start writing one thing and then you have to think at the end, well, where was I going with this? And I tell people that I teach to always look at the end at what is this poem about? Yeah. Because you might be writing, like this person as sus, you might be writing something different from what you were expecting. Sometimes poems turn and go in a different direction. It's really important to hone in on that because sometimes that's the thing you really want to be writing about.
Yeah, I find sometimes I don't know what I'm writing about. I'm sort of almost having a conversation with myself where I'm waiting to find out what I'm talking about. Yeah. And then when you get to the end, as you say, when you get to the end line, you get a sense of what it was, and then you can go back and see if everything's relevant to that, or whether you've gone off at several tangents. But it's quite nice that I find you must find this when you get to the end of a poem and you think, oh my goodness, that was better than I was thinking. Actually I've taught myself something in a strange way.
Yeah.
I do love that. It's a great. I mean, some people do Sudokus, don't they? And some people do crosswords and stuff. And to sit with a pen and doodle, if you like, with a poem, I just think it's probably far more satisfying. Now, talking of poems, it's been a time since we've heard a poem. Let's have another poem.
Okay, I'm going to read you one. This will tell you where lockdown took me, because it became very important to sort things out. I think a lot of people spent a lot of time in lockdown sorting their cupboards out. Yeah. And I decided I was going to write an inventory of my mugs. So this is my next poem. Inventory. The chunky one with hearts from Woolworths, sturdy survivor. The one from Naomi, half size, breakfast perfect. And after our fear of breaking our favourite mugs debate, the one she bought another of, in case, now nestling twins. The teaching has taken its toll, mug, the one a former student bought, then wrote and apologised in case of offence. Its 1920s teacher scratched, faded, but going strong. The how could I not buy this for $3.99 mug from the Hunstanton best craft shop in the world I can never remember the name of, because the mug was wonky and I will always love wonky. The one with the fish wound round the handle, the colour of the sea, stupid expense. But I was on holiday with a friend who later dumped me, but I never dumped the mug. Why would I, when the mug still loves me and has proved its faithfulness? The yellow ones which go with the kitchen. But why? When I don't drink in the kitchen, and who needs to colour coordinate their drinks with their walls? And reminds me of those people I worked with once who spent their lunch hour in Lakeland buying plastic to complement their well-stocked lives, and the awful silence when I laughed at anyone actually needing a mushroom cleaning brush. And Jesus, how good is self-employment and a mug that no one nicks. The 2 Denby mugs bought specially for visitors, still waiting for the kind of visitors who might prefer a storyless mug. I could go on, so I will. The mug with small blue dots brought home from St. Ives, the one with drama queen on it, I only drink from if writing a script. The go away I'm writing mug I only drink from when I'm writing. Not. And finally, my favourite, Ship and Sun, Lyme Regis, lasted 9 years, every one of them a lost brother, and my oldest, most precious, named Amy. Not forgetting the 6 broken ones, too important to throw away, holding assorted office implements and writing tools, lined up with their broken handles, chips, cracks, and round generosity. I have 1 cup and saucer. Pristine, from the day I decided to become a cup and saucer person, and still wait in hope. But mostly this is a poem about mugs, and for those who think it's not a poem or important and far from containing the meaning of life or love or death or what actually matters, read closer or don't. This is not a poem by a poet who cares. It is what it is, said my lost brother. Me. Mugs.
Beautiful. Oh, right. Oh, what a great poem. I love that.
And is making me a film of all my mugs to go with that.
Oh, that's brilliant. That would be great. That would be great. That is, I mean, it's so visual in itself, but
we could do it though, couldn't we? Haven't we all got favourite objects like that we never think about?
And mugs in particular, because it's something you can use every day. And it's funny, isn't it? Because they're valuable to you, but not necessarily valuable to anybody else. No, I love that. That is a great poem. This is. I was talking to Lem Sisse yesterday, right? And I said to Lem, I said, "Oh, I like your poem the other day. It's I wish I'd have written that." And he said, "That's the greatest compliment you can ever give a poet."
Yeah.
I'm going to say that to you. I wish I'd have written that inventory
nice.
poem.
I'll remember that, Henry.
That is great. It's funny that, isn't it? When you hear a poem, you go, "Oh, damn, that's so good. That's so good." But the other thing for me, you see, is we've touched upon this earlier. I love the idea. It was one of the things I love about poetry is the world being more than you've imagined. Do you know what I mean? And actually, sort of, when I read a poem or listen to a poem like that, it sort of makes my world bigger. And that's great, because before we started chatting, my world was had certain information in it, and I thought in a certain way. And the great thing is that by letting in creativity from other people, your world just becomes bigger. I can never understand these people. Have you come across them? These people who say, I would never read anything else because I don't want it to interfere with my work. I
have come across those people a lot, and well, they're just a bit deluded, aren't they, really? Well, because the more you read, the more you learn. And you wouldn't think of like learning the violin without ever hearing anything musical, would you? You've got to.
Now, that is a very good way of putting it. Next time I find somebody like that, that's what I'm going to say. Oh God, to hear somebody trying to play the violin who's never heard anybody else, that's painful. Now, somebody's asked a question down the side here. What's the funniest thing that's happened at a poetry reading? Have you anything to add to that?
Well, I think it is funny, but it's a bit black as well. I once had to, at Woollerton Hall in the Grand Hall, I had to read out Christmas flavoured like pieces, and there was a Newstead Abbey singers and all this, and very posh, everyone in the best frocks and all this great long hall. And a man collapsed at the back. Don't worry, he was fine afterwards, but he collapsed at the back, and they were facing me. I was seeing him on the very back row. And I watched, while I was doing this event, I watched the whole thing unfold where the ambulance came, took him, and no one else in the audience was aware of any of it going on because they did it so carefully. I took him out. He was fine afterwards, I hasten to add. But it just shows the things that...
Oh yes, no. There's all manner of stuff that's happened to me. I remember being at doing a gig in a factory once with Pete Ramskill, who you probably know as a poet who lives in Nottingham, and got to the very end of the first poem, which had a sort of a joke on it, and just as about to say the line, the slot machine paid out.
For a long time, I bet.
Completely destroyed the first poem, and you're just going, oh no, it's uphill now. And a lot of strange things happen, but you've just got to go with the flow, haven't you? That's the thing. Like you were doing in your situation, you just have to go with it. Real life's more important than reading a poem, I think. What's somebody saying? Must get on and write my mug poem. Somebody's saying. Tony Chalice, that is. So watch him for copyright.
I'll patent it.
Oh yeah, patent. That'd be good. Or you say it could be a new genre. Like
a whole anthology of mug poems.
Remember Martian poetry that came from one particular poem, didn't it?
Yeah.
Great rain. A Martian sends a postcard home, and you could spawn all these great mug poems.
No, I want to be the only one.
The only one. I was going to say, these. I think that could be your next project, a whole array of mug poems or an anthology. Now, people are asking how they're going to when they're going to see you next, and are you doing any workshops around Nottingham, or so is there anything that they can engage
nothing in
with?
The pipeline event wise at the moment, but they do just crop up like this one, and so, but as I say, if you email me, and also if you're interested in the courses I have 6 courses every term running for writers, and also I do coaching, one-to-one coaching. So if you use that email address, tell me what you're interested in, I will add you to my mailing list, and I can send you things about the Writer Highway and what's happening, or about readings that I'm involved in. That's the best way.
Great. Now we're coming towards the end, but I'm going to squeeze another poem out of the two of us. So have you got another one you can do for us?
Yeah, it's not too long, this one. This is what happened the very first time I came out of lockdown and went to sit outside a cafe. Out of lockdown. Oh, woman at the next table with your patient friend, Valerie, please tell me more. As I sit here, out at last, sunshine warming my whole self. I'd love to hear, at full volume, the reasons we should not help countries that are, after all, not ours, or struggling people who are, after all, not us. In your comfortable hat, safe elastic around your chin, and your dog's 12th birthday tomorrow, give me the timings of the sun's likely movements, your weekend forecast. I'm glad to know you can pick up the kettle now, though I'm not yet able to open your fridge, and also that next week will be colder, though dry, and how this is an August sun now, in April. I'm glad you can understand why people may want to come to this town you call yours. As I tuck into this longed-for scone, do give me the lowdown on those shingles, the stitches coming out soon. And don't forget your free lecture on guide dogs, which ends with the tale of the bee on your knee and the car and the reason the window was open, George, hay fever. And now back to the culling of humans. Nature's way, Valerie, nature's way. The sun's still out, locked down a long ago memory, brimming with quiet.
That is great. You know, there's a technique that I don't think many people have got that you're brilliantly good at, which is being straight and truthful, but gentle at the same time, which is a great quality to have, and fun, which is lovely. So next week, I mean, thanks, Cathy. Next week we've got Cleo Sombre Alt. Do you know Cleo, Cathy?
Yes, she was a student I mentored at the university a while back.
Oh, she's someone you met, so we can see what a good job you did. That will be great. That will be great. So Cleo will be on next Wednesday at 12 o'clock. And thanks. It's been great chatting to you. And as I mentioned to you before we started, it's so weird, but when you meet up with people and you know work with them and you get to know them a little bit, there's still questions that you don't ask. So these sessions have been so good for me to speak to each of the Nottingham poets that I've got on and find out a bit more myself, because I find other poets intriguing. Now, I should thank again all the people that are behind this. So Inspire, the Nottinghamshire Libraries, Nottingham County Council, Metronome, Confetti, Nottingham Poetry Festival, and NTU, which is Nottingham Trent University. So thank everybody for helping us to put this on. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you'll stay with us for the rest of the run. There's 10 in all. So I can tell you who's coming. There's Cleo next week, and then there's Leanne Moden, Georgina Wilding on the 30th of June, and on the 7th of July, there's Pete Ramskill, who we mentioned earlier. So do join us for all those. I shall finish off with a poem. So I was talking, Cathy, about where I wrote that first poem that I did. Was on a bench that my brother, who died about 5 years ago, has a little plaque. I go up on his birthday and, you know, various times in the year and sit there. And I thought it'd be nice when I pop my clogs to have a little plaque there myself. But I thought it's perfect opportunity to have a poem up. So this is a poem I've written, which hopefully will be on my plaque and celebrates the sort of the lovely times that I've had sat on that bench. It's called Hold Me With Certainty in This Heavenly Chaos. Lead me by the hand to where pirates sleep, where air has crossed the sea to find me, where my skin shines and my lungs draw deep, and leave all fear and doubt behind me.
That's lovely. Thank you for having me, Henry, as well. It's been great to hear your poems.